For this video, we're going to be taking a look at a new solo role-playing game that I've been experimenting with called The Backstory. Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming. What you see before you now is my setup for this experimental game, The Backstory. There is a free rules set PDF if you want to download this in the link below and follow along. Basically, you're just going to need a few tools here. We're going to need some dice with letters on them or cards. These are from the Scrabble card game, so you can randomly get letters, and I would suggest having some kind of timepiece to make things a bit more exciting. Now, the way this is going to work is we're going to walk through our sheet and do each section at a time, rolling off dice and picking out a name or a word that we want to use that we will immediately fill in within our time limit. And then we will, once that is done, we will then go ahead and fill in a little more detail in the boxes. I'll show you how this works, but the idea here is basically it's the process, the creative process that is really fun. And if you're a game master, this might actually be really good for you if you want to use this process to construct characters, NPCs, or parts of a world in which you will be playing your game. Here's a quick close-up of how this sheet looks. We start here with general character information. The first row there you see is full name. I have 10 boxes where we can fill in letters. You don't need to use all 10. If you have more than 10, go ahead and keep filling them in. But the point is to pull out a word or a name, throw it in those boxes, and then use the rest of the space here, this blue space in this case, to fill out the description. An important point when we start here now is with the dice. When you roll your dice, do not overthink it. Just grab the dice and make any association you can. Try to make a word as quickly as you can in the time limit that you have. Put that in your box and then take some more time to fill in the description. This will force you to think on your feet, to improv a little bit, but also give you the time afterwards to develop your word or your name in an interesting direction. When you start to roll your dice now, remember this, that you can pick out whatever genre you want beforehand, or you can just roll the dice and see what kind of name or what kind of creature type you get or social class, and allow that to shape the genre for this particular game. Whether it's a vampiric game, or it could be a modern horror game, it could be a fantasy game, it could be a cyberpunk or a futuristic game, that's entirely up to you. But go ahead and just let the dice determine that, or you can pick it beforehand. I'm probably going to try something like a fantasy kind of game for this one. Here we go, rolling off for the name. So this is the first thing that came to my mind really quickly, Draldum, and I will go ahead and write that in the block of my general character information. Nothing more I really need to say about that, so I will leave the rest blank, and well, let's go ahead and roll off now for race or creature type. So there we go. Sometimes you have to be really creative, and I came up with Lex Horde. Interesting phrase. Now, I've filled it out here in the extra space, and I wrote, one time he was king of an undead group of warriors. I'm going to consider him a human king of sorts. That's not necessarily what he is now, but that's what he has been. On to class and social status. So as the timer just finished out, I whipped this out, this little phrase, gone bad. So for the details here, I wrote, he had a great deal of wealth, but all of his financial assets went bad, and now he is poor. So it could be the case that he was using this undead horde to try to extract money from people around him, but that somehow went bad, and now he no longer has any money, and he is in abject poverty. Profession. And as our timer runs out, this is what I've got. By mid-T. So here's how we flesh this out. Our hero, he buys middle-range quality teas from the distributor in the harbor, and he sells them to wealthy customers. Sex and gender traits. Well, because I've already talked to him about this character as a king, I'm assuming that it is a male. So let's go ahead and roll this off to see if there's any sort of traits or anything specific about him. So here's what we came up with. Strained. He is an incredibly strained a man, so he is kind of leaning over and not feeling very well. He has had a hard life and he is exhausted and tired. Moving on now to our age or our age description. And here's what we got as our time ran out. This is kind of funny. He's not dead, ... So he's pretty old and he is not doing well. He's not dead, but he is getting close to it. So he's extremely old and tired. That fits well with strained and exhausted. When we move to the geographical things now, the home, village, city, region, country, continent, we can follow the same way of rolling dice and picking out letters. I want to show you how this can possibly work with cards, though. So let's do home, village, or city using our cards. And as the time runs out now, we got this name for our home village, the village of Lorst. So there we go. I just went and filled in the rest of the geographical notes here. So we have our home village city of Lorst in the region of Hadasor, in our country of Ferana, and on the continent of Vandem. If you want to add some more notes to this, you could easily do that to try to flesh out what these different regions, cities, country, continent look like. Once we've done all that general stuff, now we are into specific character information. And this is where the game gets really interesting because now we're going to be filling out all sorts of crazy things like personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, life goals, fears, dislikes, likes, hopes, dreams, habits. So here's where we really need to be creative and use our word association to try to come up with something interesting. I'm going to show you a few of these, how they look, and then I will fill in the rest off of camera. So here we go. Let's start out with personality traits. And as the time runs out, here's the word I got, forget. So I will say that his personality trait is he is a very forgetful guy. And the question is, probably more often than not, it's a willful forgetfulness. Let's do another one here, ideals. And as time runs out now, here we get heed God. So his ideal now is to pay careful attention to or to listen carefully to the divine. And after rolling off now, here is the specific character information. He's a willful forgetfulness is his personality trait. His ideals is to heed God, to listen carefully and obey the divine. His bonds is to a comrade, his closest advisor when he was king. Flaws, fits of madness. He loses his temper and goes into fits of madness, which can lead to very, very bad consequences. Life goals. I got death, Rex. His goal is to kill the current king in Ferana. His fears, I rolled out child. So his greatest fear is actually meeting his daughter, who has been seeking him out to reconcile with him. She's been sending him letters. When he was a king, he got many letters from her. They were estranged, and she's been seeking him out to reconcile. But this is his greatest fear, reconciliation. Dislikes, morph. That was an interesting one. He dislikes those who hide in deceptive forms. He was betrayed by somebody at one point who had taken on a particular morph. So that is what he dislikes. What he likes, I rolled out gambling. He is a gambler. Hopes. Great meet was what I got as the time ran out. His hope is to be able to meet someone of significance who can help him get out of his current situation as a tea seller and to try to make his way back into a position of power where he can go and try to assassinate the king. Dreams. To repay debt, I rolled. He owes a spiritual debt to the divinity. While he was king, he accrued a debt to the divinity, and now his dream is to be able to repay that debt. Habits, I wrote meditate. That was what I rolled out. And his habit is that he's very slow to act. He falls back into meditation very often, very reflective. So very a cerebral kind of person who does not act quickly, but very often pulls back to think and meditate. On to the next page now, we have the character's social context. I don't need to go through all of these. I will do a couple of them, but this is a really interesting way to fill in the backstory of your character. We have father, mother, sibling or siblings, relative, relatives, friend or friends, club associations, rivalry or rivalries, and religious affiliations. Now, because our character is a religious kind of person, I would like to roll off for religious affiliations on this sheet. And well before the timer even runs out, I got this. Lux Brothers, the Brothers of Light. So the additional information I wrote here was a brotherhood revolving around the worship of the god of light. Now, we'll say that our character, he got into this early on, perhaps even to infiltrate it. But as he turned towards the dark arts and became more and more powerful with the undead, eventually becoming the king of the undead, he was thrown out of the brotherhood and a massive religious conflict ensued. On the next page of the sheet, we have major life events. I have listed here 5 major life events, but you can see now as we're working through this game, we have already come up with some major life events. He's had an estrangement with his daughter, for example. He's been kicked out of the Brotherhood of Light. So maybe that's good enough. You could just fill those in and you have your major life events. But if you want to have more, we can continue on to see if there are any more major life events in our character's life. Let's go ahead and roll this off. We'll do one of them and see what happens. And as the timer runs out here, I get shame and born. So I'm going to keep building upon what we've talked about already. And I will say this, at the birth of his daughter, he was ashamed at not getting a son as the divinity had foretold. So he sent his daughter away to another country with the nurse. And the daughter is now continuously trying to contact him as she has become an adult. And with that, we come to the final page here, the additional character information. Now, this is just if you want to add anything else to your character, to roll off some more dice or draw some more cards and see if there's anything else interesting that comes up. So let's go ahead and give this a try. We'll do it one time. And for this roll now, I got these 2 words, zone demand. So the idea here is that our character's gotten into trouble with his behavior while selling tea in the inner city of Lorst. So perhaps he had one of his mad fits when a customer didn't give him the price that he was hoping for. And therefore the guard has demanded that he remain outside of this city zone. So he is unable to enter the central city. The guards have a very good idea of who he is and they are watching out for him, which will make it difficult for him eventually to make it into the inner city to try to carry out his plan of assassinating the king. Well, there you have it, folks. A run-through of the backstory, a solo role-playing game where you are able to create a backstory for a character and an entire world. Now, the fun part of this game is the imaginative and creative process, but an added bonus of playing this game is that when you are finished, you'll have 1 or more characters and an entire world at your fingertips. For game masters, this can prove an invaluable tool. Well, there you have it. All that remains now is for you to get together your tools and watch as both an entire backstory and an entire world come alive. Have fun creating. If you appreciate this video, please do give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel. I will continue to make creative videos like this for your solo role-playing. And most importantly, thank you for joining us here today at Grey Army Gaming for the future of gaming.